Hey guys, Tyler with Independence Overland. So today I'm doing the last video in the series of old Toyota upgrades. And in this video, I'm not gonna go over just one thing. I'm gonna go over a bunch of different ideas for you to update your old Toyota, your old Jeep, your old four-wheel drive. The reason I'm doing this series is because I know it is very hard to afford a modern vehicle. They've gotten crazy, inflation's crazy. The new Rangers are expensive, the new Chevys are expensive, the new Tacomas are expensive, no matter which trim, even the bottom of the line stuff is expensive. And so I've wanted a new truck for 8 years now, and I'm finally now able to make it happen. So I understand what it's like to not be able to make one happen, but for some of you, you just don't want one of the new ones because pretty much every manufacturer is going to a turbocharged, smaller displacement engine, and some people don't agree with that, and some people just don't want all the technology. So what I thought I would do for all of those that want to keep their old four-wheel drive for whatever reason, I came up with some different ideas on things that I've done to this recently and things I've done to it in the past that at the time really refreshed the vehicle because again, I couldn't afford one at the time. Some of it was just for looks, some of it was for functionality. And so I'm gonna go over some of these modifications just to give you ideas because with these old vehicles, you can do certain things that you've been putting off for a long time. And maybe it's just time to finally pull the trigger. So when you see those new vehicles sitting on the dealership lots, I'm telling you, even though you get a little bit of FOMO about them, if you put some money and some time into your old four-wheel drive, you can have a whole new experience. It'll make you fall in love with that thing all over again. So I'm gonna go over several options. I think I've got like between 10 and 15 different things that I wanna touch on, maybe more. And some of these things, again, I've done in the past, and some of these things I'm doing now, but these are all just ideas because I've ran into several points with this vehicle in the past where I was like, I need to change some things or this thing is going away. And so I've made those changes and I'm very happy with it, and I'm still gonna use this vehicle even after I get the new truck. So let's dive into some of these modifications. Okay, so this one is quick and easy. You guys have seen that I've had a black decal on the hood of the FJ before, and I just wanted to do something different. And I bought this from Taco Vinyl. I have no affiliation with them. As you can see, this thing's pretty dirty right now because I was out on the trail yesterday, but I installed this a couple weeks ago, and what I really wanted was just to give the FJ a slightly different look. Doing something like this is cheap and easy, and it's just one of those things that can give your vehicle a new appearance. So graphic vinyl like this, there's Taco Vinyl, there's plenty of places on Etsy if you have more of a rare vehicle. You can go and you can find stuff like this relatively easy. This one from Taco Vinyl is more expensive than what I've paid for in the past, but I'm hoping that it's a better quality vinyl because the ones I've done before, they only last like 2 years and then they become a real pain to get off of here. But anyway, I want to spend a little bit more money on this one this time around. I'm hoping it holds up more, and I just like the topography. I had gotten asked by several people, is this a specific place? No, it's not. If I had the option of doing a specific topography map, then I probably would, but I just bought what they had in stock. And I mean, to me, it's just kind of for the look. And I think it looks pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. So anyway, this is a very simple and effective visual upgrade for your old four-wheel drive. Okay, so this is an upgrade that's very cheap and very effective. Again, I didn't clean this up before this video. It's raining outside, so it wouldn't have done much good. But I don't know how many of you have already seen some of my videos, but usually my bumper up close, it does not look this good. If you look at any of my other videos, it is not this shiny. This black plastic is not this shiny, and any of my other plastics are not this shiny. So on Amazon for 18 bucks, you can get a ceramic coating from Cerakote. And basically you have to degrease all of your plastics with Dawn dish soap. You wash it up really well and you wipe those things on, and it is the most impressive black plastic restorer that I've ever seen. It's supposed to last 200 washes. I've used other plastic restoration products before, and while they work very short term, they don't last. And this has been on here for 3 or 4 weeks now. It's been outside the entire time, and it is not fading at all. Some of it looks faded, but that's just like dirt and stuff and mud because I was on trails yesterday once again, and that's the only reason. But this is a very long-lasting black plastic restoration. As you can see right here, I'm gonna step out of the frame so it'll focus on this. This black plastic looks better than it has in years, and again, this has been outside, this has been in the dirt, and it is just looking so much better, and all of this will just wipe off. This made everything that's powder coated, everything that I've bed lined, and everything that was a factory plastic, it made it look really, really good. And I'm very happy with the look because when you have the faded black plastics, even if your paint doesn't look that great, the black plastics, once they're black again, it'll make everything look better. It really does. I did my front bumper, my rear bumper, all the black plastics, the snorkel. I did around my windows because they're black as well. I did the hood. and I still had like 3 or 4 of the wipes left. For 18 bucks, I mean, I could probably do the entire tent as well, and I do plan to do that in the future. This is the best stuff that I've ever found so far, so I highly recommend it just to give some new life to your old plastics. Okay, so another thing that I have not done in several years, and as you can see, the FJ is not a prime example of this right now. I'll put a photo in, but what you can do is you can get a McGuire's kit, and I'm sure there's plenty of other kits out there that are relatively inexpensive. It's basically a detailing and polishing kit. So one of these kits, if you use the compound, the polish, and the wax, or whatever it is, I forget off the top of my head. I'm not a detail expert, that's for sure. But you can polish a lot of the scratches out, but it'll bring your paint back to, I'm not gonna say factory, because you're still gonna have a bunch of scratches and stuff, but it'll make your paint pop. A lot of you guys are probably in the same boat that I'm in, and that's just wanting to take care of this stuff now. So I'm telling you that if you spend a weekend polishing up your paint and then you jumped onto your plastics as well, your vehicle will look brand new again for at least another 6 months. If you take better care of it, it'll last even longer. But man, at that point, whenever you walk out into the parking lot and you see your truck again, you will get very excited about what it looks like. Anyway, that's a cheap thing. I think you can do it for around 80 bucks with that gun that I was talking about that hooks into your drill, and I'll link all this stuff. If you have the money to pay somebody else to do it, that's great, but a lot of people like doing the DIY stuff. And honestly, it kind of gives you time with the truck and it makes you appreciate the whole job a little bit more. A lot of elbow grease goes into that whole process. But anyway, it's still a relatively cheap thing you can do to restore the look of your old four-wheel drive. Okay, so next up is your suspension system. And I know this may seem like an obvious one. So there are a lot of people out there that buy a cheaper suspension system wishing they had bought something that was better. And that's part of the reason I want to touch on this whole thing. So with suspension systems, I just recently rebuilt mine. And this is something to know before you dive into this upgrade, is a lot of people want to get something like a King suspension, a Fox suspension with the remote reservoirs and everything. They ride great, but something to know is that these types of suspensions, you think because you're spending more on them that they're gonna last longer, they're gonna last forever. They're actually not. They need a lot of maintenance, and it's a very expensive process. I just rebuilt my Kings on my own because I have I guess the confidence to do something like that, and I have the tools to do something like that. And just the parts were over $800 to rebuild them, and King recommends you rebuild them every 30,000 miles. Mine were closer to like 70 or so. The rears definitely needed rebuilt. So the reason I'm saying this is because that's a fair warning to diving in something like this, but you can also get really good deals on a suspension system. So a lot of guys buy this kind of stuff, and I see them popping up on Facebook Marketplace for very cheap. I think a lot of people buy these types of suspensions, and then when the time comes, they realize how expensive it is to keep them up, and they'll end up switching out for something else. I've seen a lot of suspensions, Icon, King, you name it, I've seen them for sale. And you can buy those kits for a pretty good price, especially if they need a rebuild, and you can get a pretty good deal out of it, especially if they have a blown seal. And all of that stuff is replaceable. So you can get really good deals on suspension systems. And yes, you're gonna have to do some work or pay somebody to do some of that work, but you can get thousands of dollars off of a kit like this. So I highly recommend looking into that. And for some of you guys that don't want to spend that much money, maybe look into something that is a bit of an upgrade for you. Like I know ARB has the MT67, I believe is what they're called. That's a new system that's built specifically for overland use. The thinking behind that is that they're a long-term shock versus something like this is actually a racing shock, and that's why they need so much upkeep. This isn't even for the guys that just need a lift kit. I'm just talking about upgrading your shocks in general, because all the new four-wheel drives are coming with way better suspensions than they did in the past. So maybe for your old four-wheel drive, it's time to start looking into spending a little bit of money, because that's one of those things that whenever you can romp through the desert and it's actually pretty comfortable to do so, man, you will really appreciate having that new suspension system. Okay, so this one is expensive, I understand. You don't have to buy the same brand, but I wanted to talk about the seats. Now, I did a whole video on the Shield seats that I bought several years ago. These were like $4,200 or $4,300, I think. Pricing has probably gone up since then. So I was getting to the point where even 4 or 5 hours of driving was causing like pain. And at the time, I was definitely too young for that. I still am. For me, at the time, it was either I have to spend money on new seats or I have to spend money building a whole different vehicle and starting over. And so in a way, it was cheaper just to put new seats in. So I got the Shieldman seats, and I do not regret these at all. It's actually a concern of mine for getting a brand new Toyota, because even though the seats look nice in them, I have a hard time believing they're going to be anything like this. These have just been phenomenal. And there are other seats. I believe there's the one that's PRP is the seat manufacturer. And then I've seen guys who've taken, like for Toyota, they can find a Lexus seat or a BMW seat. And even for you Jeep guys, I'm sure there's different models that you can pluck seats from. Doing a seat upgrade in an old 4-wheel drive, holy smokes, it makes such a difference. So now I have done 16-hour trips before all in one shot, and I'm telling you that gravity has an effect on you still, but compared to what I'm used to, or if we use my wife's vehicle or something like that, I'm much more comfortable in this seat, fully adjustable, everything. And man, it made just such a difference for long distance travel. So one of the things that I did on my interior as well is I did an overhead console. And this is from ARB, or I think they called it Outback at the time. It's another sub brand of ARB, I believe. These are pretty expensive, but this is one of those things that really gave me like new lights in here, which are very bright. It was a huge upgrade. And I wanted a place to be able to mount my radio. I've got a CB in here, which I honestly wish I didn't do. Now I'm ready to tear that thing out. So on this overhead console, what I did was I put a GoPro mount here. It's got extra lighting. It came with radio mounts, so everything is up out of the way. So whenever I'm talking to people, I can pull this down real easy. Not that new vehicles necessarily come with something like this, but this is just one of those things that I added to where it made the interior feel a lot different than it had before. And it's something that I wish more vehicles came with because it is so useful. And up here, I'll store different things up here from time to time. Like I have a DeLorme InReach in here. I will often put my little DJI camera up here. Obviously, I've got a beanie or two. Oh, Alucab. Shout out to Alucab. And then some business cards, and then I've got my DeLorme InReach. But anyway, it's storage and I can switch that out for whatever I need it to be at the time. So when I went through like Mexico and stuff, I could keep some of my information and money up here and stuff like that. And it just helped keep things organized for the task at hand. And different trips are always going to be different. But this is just one of those things on the interior that I really appreciated once I put it in. I have like this. It is expensive for what you get out of it. I mean, you're getting lighting, you're getting a little bit of storage, but you are moving your radio up out of the way, because one of the things back then is I was trying to get the radio out of Natalia's footwell over there. You can find them for different vehicles. And then I've also seen where people will take some out of the older Chevy models and they'll put them in here. So there's different options for different vehicles. Jeep guys, you have a lot more options than us Toyota guys do, but it's something to think about, and maybe you can get something like this going in your own vehicle. So for you FJ guys, I will put a link below, assuming I can still find these things online, for this particular product. Yes, they're expensive. And something to note is they are listed as only being compatible with the 2010 to 2014 FJs. This is a 2007 FJ. The only reason they list that is because the coloring of the wiring in the instructions are a specific way. And in all reality, all you got to do is figure out the wiring on your own with a test light, and then it just hooks right up. It was no big deal. You do have to cut into your headliner, so it's pretty much one of those things that there's no going back. But again, I really appreciate having it. I've got space for radios, and in the future, who knows what I'll do with it. I also considered where my CB was, putting like a switch panel up there, just to kind of have something like the Ineos has, but we'll see what happens with that. So the next thing is going to be vehicle organization. And no, the new vehicles do not come with this kind of a kit, but it will make your vehicle feel like a new vehicle, I'm telling you. Especially if you're like me and you don't need your rear seats, or maybe you don't need one rear seat. I used to have a DIY seat delete system back here. And then I got to a point where I wanted storage like this, and I don't have the means, my dad does, but I don't have the access to woodworking tools or really the time to make it happen. So I just bought the Goose Gear system. And I have no affiliation with Goose Gear whatsoever, but man, I really like this kit. It is so nice to have access to different things under here. I store like just a sledgehammer. Normally the dog's blankets in here. I can store this out of the way in the summer months. And it's kind of an awkward space, but it's still space. On that side where the camera's at, I have all of my extra parts. I carry like extra bolts and stuff like that, an extra belt for the engine, things like that. And then these front ones are access into where the footwell used to be back here. And it just makes it to where everything's easy to get to. I have my seat a little too far forward, or back, I mean. But I can get to everything that I need right here. It makes it easy. Normally I just keep the tripod in here and I can get to it from the side. So Goose Gear does make side panels for some of these vehicles, to where over here on the side, this is blocked off. They haven't made that for the FJ yet, unfortunately. This still functions as a useful locking area, especially in the FJ Cruiser. Like this back portion, you can't get to anything from up here. it's just too awkward to get your hand into, and there's like bars there and stuff. So I can actually lock things up. When I've been traveling through different states, I have locked up my pistol in here before. And it's just one of those things that it's nice to be able to have a locking access. Of course, it's not theft proof. Thieves can get into anything, as everybody says, but it made me feel a lot better. And then when we went through Mexico, passports and stuff like that, I could lock that up in these little areas, and it was out of the way, and it was relatively safe. So it did make me feel better. So organization with the goose gear. And then the goose gear systems too, they come with anchor points to where, like, I have straps for that side whenever I have my camera equipment. I lash all that stuff down. It doesn't get into the dog's way, and I can change these out as I need to. Like, for instance, I'm getting ready to go to the Overland Expo this next week, and so it's gonna be just me, no dog this time. So I'm gonna reconfigure this to where I can have my Varla scooter back here, and I can anchor that down in case I need to hit the brakes or something on the way. My Varla scooter won't go hitting the back of the seats or anything like that. So anyway, the goose gear system adds a lot of utility to a space like this. And man, I absolutely love this kit. And I will definitely be doing a seat delete in my new truck. While I'm on the topic of making your vehicle feel like a new vehicle. So I have no affiliation with Blue Ridge Overland gear, but I own a lot of their stuff. And so they sell these panels that are just a big Velcro panel, and I screwed mine onto the back of my DIY refrigerator cabinet here, which is not as nice as a goose gear, I might add, but you can get these Velcro packs, and it helps you organize your vehicle, and it's really nice because I keep all sorts of GoPro stuff in this one. This will have Blue's jackets in it, the dog's jackets in it from time to time, and then in this one I keep extra paracord for if it's really rainy, I can stake the awning out and put lines down to where water doesn't excessively pool on the top of the awning. And so it's just an organizational thing. And man, it makes such a difference. Like, it's just wasted space. Otherwise, it doesn't get in my way, Natalia's way, or the dog's way. You can put these Velcro pieces pretty much anywhere your heart desires, and you can have storage up out of the way. So the Jeep Gladiators and the new Jeeps at least do come with seat back MOLLE panels, or MOLLE built into the seat itself. And then the new Toyotas and stuff, they don't even come with a map pocket on both of them. But for somebody like me, I really don't care, because I'm gonna put something like this in any vehicle that I'm gonna take out exploring, because as you can see, I can organize all sorts of stuff here. So you can put different bags on these. I've got a reptile and amphibian identification book, and then I also keep some binoculars in here for the times that I see wildlife or I'm just trying to look for something. Obviously, I have a holster here, and then I don't even remember what's in this one. This one's unutilized. But whenever we go on trips and we're packing up, Natalia can put some stuff in the back of this. Over on that side, I have all sorts of camera cables and charging cables and stuff like that. All of my air down tools are on that side, and it just makes getting to things that much easier. I know where everything is at. And all of these panels are, of course, removable. So it really does make life easy. And then these top ones are Velcro as well. So if I wanted to, I could quickly switch this bag with one of the ones I was just showing you. Something to note is there are cheaper MOLLE panels you can find online. I've found very few that are solid like this. I've tried some of the ones that are cheaper, and they don't have a panel in them, and they are a baggy mess. And then there's also some that you can get that are probably around the same price, and a lot of them are made in China. So this is 100% made in the United States. So I just recommend supporting Blue Ridge Overland gear, because they really do make a lot of cool stuff. I've got their trash bag. My next truck will probably have their trash bag on the rear tire, and then all of their pouches and stuff. I just really like their gear. So with the organizational stuff as well, doing something like a Wrangler net or Blue Ridge Overland gear also sells vehicle attics. This was such a nice upgrade. I've got a huge solar panel up here. I keep jackets up there. We keep clothes up there. That thing has been packed with all sorts of stuff, and it just gives you extra room to get your stuff up off of like your seat delete. Because for me, especially in such a small vehicle, I need room to put my clothes. Natalia certainly needs room to put her clothes, and just put it somewhere up out of the way. If we're on a trail and we jump in the vehicle and we've got rain all over us on like a rain jacket, we can pull that off and just stuff it up there, and then the vents help dry it. And it's a really nice thing to have. It's simple and it's effective, and they're relatively inexpensive. Organization can make your vehicle, especially your overland vehicle, feel like a whole different thing. Okay, so the next one is gonna be the infotainment center. And so what I was going to do for this video is I was gonna put a huge screen in here just to update it and give it something that the new vehicles definitely do have. This isn't bad, but having a bigger screen for maps is especially awesome. And I know a lot of people mount like iPads and stuff. I'm getting a new truck with a 14-inch screen, so I definitely didn't want to invest in another iPad. nor do I really want one mounted in the FJ. The reason I didn't mount one in this particular vehicle is it does block these vents right here after I looked around and saw a bunch of stuff. And so I need these vents to work for the dog in the back seat. So I couldn't do that. But what I did do is I got this AI box, and this is a 1-car stereo CarPlay AI box. This thing has 64 gigs of memory, and basically you plug it into any modern stereo system, and what it does is it'll give you access to, like what we're on right now, YouTube. So you can get on there and watch my videos, like and subscribe, of course, and then you can also put Netflix on there and all sorts of things. So anything that exists on the Google Play Store or Android Play Store, whatever it's called, you can put any of those apps on this little box, and then you can play it through your car, which is pretty cool. And again, it has like 64 gigs of memory, so you can use up all of that for whatever you want. One of the things that the Ineos Grenadier has, or doesn't have yet, is repair information built into the infotainment system. You could actually go through with a box like this and do a bunch of repair videos and save them. Then you could have access to those at any given time. You could just have that stuff on your phone, but because it is 64 gigs of memory, you could basically dedicate that much memory to repair videos. While we're on the infotainment system, and I don't actually have this in yet, I own it, but I have not had time to put it in, is something that the new vehicles have that I think is really cool. So there are so many times off-road that I'm coming up a hill and I cannot see what is in front of me. And it would be so nice to have what those new vehicles have, and they've had it for a while, and that is just a front-facing camera. Now, with a stereo like what I have here, I have 2 camera inputs, and so I bought another camera, and I'm gonna mount that on the front of the grill. So whenever I'm off-road now, what I'll be able to do is I will be able to switch in between my cameras once I have the other one installed, and it'll be similar to what a new vehicle is. These camera systems on Amazon are incredibly cheap. I think I paid like 30 bucks for the one that I have. So of course I'm gonna link these below, but this camera's like 30 bucks. So for $60, you can have a front and rear camera if you don't already for your aftermarket car stereo. Once you've done enough off-roading, you're gonna run into situations where you cannot see what's in front of you and you're coming up a hill, getting ready to go down something. And having that extra camera would just be really nice, because then you can kind of spot yourself in those situations that you need to. One more thing on our infotainment here is I added this cheap little tray here. I found it on Amazon. I try not to support cheap stuff like this. I really wanted to get the Expedition Essentials one, but because I'm getting a new vehicle, I just didn't want to spend the money. I will get the upgraded one soon because it has USB power and everything, and it looks a lot nicer than this one. But this one's actually surprisingly sturdy. And then I added a RAM mount for my phone. And then as you can see, this system has all sorts of slots and stuff, and so I can mount all sorts of stuff here. But it's just a cheap way. This was like 30 bucks, and so now I have mounting 4 different phones. This actually came with it. This is a really cheap mount. It's not the greatest, but and honestly, the RAM one isn't my favorite. I kind of like the look of the Peak Design ones or the quad locks or something like that. And here's the thing, if you can't find something like this on Amazon, look on Etsy. There are so many guys with 3D printers and stuff now, and there's more access to technology to make things like this, that people have started selling a lot of specialty stuff for vehicles on Etsy. I'm telling you, you'll find way more for your vehicle, assuming it's relatively popular. You'll find a lot of cool stuff for your vehicle on Etsy. So go on and check some of that stuff out, because those sellers are just small businesses, and they're trying to make cool stuff for you. So go check those out. One of the things that the new vehicles have is they have power ports everywhere. And this is such a simple and cheap thing that you can add to your vehicle. You could plug them in to where they hardwire into the vehicle whenever it's running, or you could wire them into your power pack, or if you have a red arc type system like what I have, then you can run them to where they're always on with the battery. And I've got like a lithium battery built into this. But this is something I haven't seen that many people do. So for me personally, I felt one light in my rear bumper was plenty, because lights today are incredibly bright. So what I did over here is I added power ports, and I've had these for a number of years, I think 6 or 7 years now. And what I did is I just built this out of cheap plastic, the same stuff my refrigerator cabinet's built out of. It's PDFE or something like that. I forget, the HDPE, I think is what it's called. But anyway, this is just a simple bolt-in plastic thing. It's strong, surprisingly strong. So these are just little marine grade 12-volt power ports, so I can plug in a USB-C type of charger. I can run my geyser shower off of this. I can charge different devices off of this, and it's just one of those things that I can get to power when the vehicle's closed up in case it's dusty or something like that, or raining outside. And for whatever reason, I can get to power, and I can have it when I'm back here at camp charging my Dometic faucet, charging any of the portable lights that I have, camera equipment. So something I would suggest on this, if you're gonna do this kind of a thing, is either install it in a way where it fits into a standard toggle switch port, like what you can find on CH4x4. You can find a lot of those types of little switch ports, panels on eBay as well. And they're like a square port, or do the round style cigarette lighter port. And the reason I say that is if you buy a specialty plug of some sort, if it's not a standardized plug, then in the future you've cut a hole into it. And if that plug for some reason or that company goes away, and a lot of them are like Chinese produced things and they'll just go away, then you'll have a hole in your plastics in your interior or your exterior, and you won't be able to fill that. You can always find a replacement for the standard sizes, as some of those specialty items you may not be able to replace in the future. Okay guys, time to own up. You know who you are. So with wiring, I've owned this vehicle for a very long time, and obviously a lot of you are gonna be in the same situation, and that's why you're watching this video. I've owned this thing since I was like 21 or 22 years old, back before I was wiring 12-volt trucks and stuff professionally. Some of my wiring in this, actually a lot of my wiring in this is embarrassing, because I would go through and I would buy lights or something like that, and then I would wire that up, and then shortly after I had something else to wire up. And so instead of having one big well thought out system, I have a nest of wires, and it's terrible. It's embarrassing. If I were to take this to a shop to get some of the work done, they would have so much trouble tracing wires and stuff. And so a couple years ago, I made moves to correct some of that. And part of it was tearing out the old relays, and I bought this little Eaton switch box off of eBay. It was somewhat pre-wired for me. And then I was able to build my own system off of that. And this is for wiring in like my lights and stuff, and that way I can wire things into my bright lights and everything to work. In today's world, this is one of the cheaper options. It's basically a DIY S-Pod. I know I've seen the options for the aux beam, and some people do have good success with those. The problem I have with one of those kits is I've read some horror stories. I don't know, it's a lot of work for something that may fail, and it's gonna be made out of cheaper electronics, and I personally don't want to use an aux beam switch panel in my own stuff. If you do, that's great. They're relatively inexpensive. I think they're like $200. So eventually I do want to put something like an S-Pod or Red Arc Rogue system into this. They both have their pros and cons. The Red Arc Rogue system, because I've already got so many switches in here, it is compatible with the switches that I already have. You don't need a special control panel, but it's still going to give you less wires you got to run, because it's basically a solid state relay system, and get rid of all of my old bad wiring, and you literally have one strip of wiring that goes into the interior, and everything's controlled from there. Okay, so I have other upgrades that I've done full videos on recently, such as the Apex sway bar disconnect system. I wanted to have my sway bar intact. I drove for a while without the sway bar. This thing is very top heavy. A lot of overland vehicles, especially the SUVs, are top heavy, and going around corners and stuff in Colorado at high speeds, I wasn't comfortable with it. My wife definitely doesn't like it, so I wanted to get my sway bar back. So I have a sway bar disconnect system that I've installed, and I've installed other disconnect systems before. None of them can hold a candle to what Apex did on these. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it requires some labor. I do have to add, though, on that installation, the new version of it, you don't have to weld onto the frame like I did. That would have been nice, but they had to change that up. So now it's just drilling and putting in some rib nuts. It's so easy to lock them back in, and then you're back on the road, and you got your sway bar back, get off road, unclip them. It takes almost no effort at all, and then you've got that articulation. So that's one video that I recently did. I will link that here. My other video was a power brake video, and the new vehicles do come with bigger brake packages because they're designed to tow tons of weight, they're designed to haul tons of weight, and they're heavier vehicles in general. These new Tacomas and 4Runners and Land Cruiser, they've got pretty big brakes on them now. And so I wanted a brake upgrade for this old thing, because I have experienced brake fade on the trails. Whenever your brakes go out on a four-wheel drive trail, it is dangerous and it is scary. And the power brake system, I go into detail on why it's an awesome upgrade. And there's definitely a difference with these brakes. I used to experience brake fade way quicker than I do now. I actually haven't experienced brake fade at all with these, but that was another full dedicated video that I will link below. The last one is my lighting upgrade. So I went through and I put Freedom Retrofit lights on the FJ. I did a whole video on the lighting upgrade. I did both the headlights, which the output, it's more than just looks. The output of these at night is just incredible. All the new trucks and the new vehicles, they've got LED everything, or at least the higher trims do. You can add that stuff. I put it off for years. It was such an upgrade. I hope that these things are as durable as my OEM lights are. So far, I really love them. I love the look of it. So of course, there's other things you can do to your old four-wheel drive, like wheels, maybe do a new tire package, something like that. There's a lot of things you can do to freshen up your old four-wheel drive, just so you don't get FOMO as bad with the new stuff. Or maybe it's just the new powertrains and you've decided, you know what, I'm sticking with my old V6 or my V8 forever. And so go ahead and put some money into the thing. If you keep an old four-wheel drive looking good and it still feels like a new vehicle to you, I mean, it can really go a long way. So I know some of this stuff is expensive, some of this stuff is cheap, but putting some love in your old four-wheel drive, it'll just make you fall in love with the vehicle all over again. So I put links for all of this stuff below. Some of it's affiliate links, some of it is not. I just want to share with what I've been up to because I want this vehicle to look good next to my new Tacoma, because you will see these vehicles in videos together because the FJ isn't going anywhere. And I just wanted to refresh it and bring it back to life. And so there's gonna be more stuff like this in the future over the next couple years. I might even put a new engine in this just so I trust it a little bit more for those upcoming trips to Mexico again and stuff like that. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this video series. If you got anything out of this, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.
As always, thank you so much for watching, and click one of the videos in the corner to check out more of our adventure, off-road, and overland related content.